Hey everyone, just a quick announcement before we get started. I have been nominated for the Million Dreams Award for Creator of the Year, and I'll be attending the award ceremony held at Reconnect in Denver. If you're watching this video the week of its release, the polls to vote for the nominees are still open, so please use the link at the top of the description below to vote for some of the amazing creators featured in over a dozen different categories. I am overjoyed to have been nominated alongside so many talented people, so thank all of you who've gotten me this far. This community really has taken my breath away. Okay, that's all from me, now on to the video. The art of the video game crossover is a lost one. In fact, I'm not sure we ever fully understood its secrets. If you try to name your top 3 favorite crossover franchises, it's gonna be Kingdom Hearts, Super Smash Bros, and what? Poker Night at the Inventory? Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games? Sure, there are plenty of them out there, but somehow they always seem to wind up less than the sum of their parts. I say somehow, but it's not hard to imagine why. The licenses alone for everyone participating is going to cost several arms, legs, and other assorted extremities, and not a single corporate overlord worth his suit is going to shell that out and then also gamble on a brand new gameplay idea. They're going to copy what works and shill. Smash Bros but Sony, Smash Bros but cartoons, Smash Bros but different cartoons. This is what makes Kingdom Hearts such a unicorn of a series, that it took the signal boost from its 2 titanic progenitors and used it as a jumping off point to build its own identity. Square could have made this a Final Fantasy and a Disney paint job, but instead they made this planet-hopping, run-and-jumping, slash-and-bashing amalgamation that was quite unlike anything we'd seen before. Even in the height of the platformer boom, there were none with this many RPG elements. There were no beat-em-ups with this kind of verticality. This is the sort of thing that carries the zeitgeist surrounding a game. Maybe we all bought it or begged our parents for it because of Genie and Mickey the Goddang Mouse, but this series has only persisted because it was bold enough to do its own thing. Come for Jack Skellington, stay for this Beef Wellington of a combat system. This joke worked better in my head. Welcome back, everyone and everything. Our route to Halloween Town would be pretty uneventful, but the pair of new gummy ships in our way can do this, and survive a number of meteor lasers. So the gummy routes are finally getting a little bit tougher. Never mind, it's over. I like how both of those ships have this sort of power core looking sphere in their designs, which naturally comes from their Final Fantasy origins. Now, while we're out here, awkwardly, I managed to completely miss one of the blueprints when we went through the blue hole, despite the fact that there's like a zillion of them. These are stingrays, which are kinda weird. It's a pretty unremarkable enemy from Final Fantasy V that never reappeared in the main series. It's not a boss or a summon or anything, and perhaps weirdest of all, it's the only ship I've seen with a design change between versions that made it look less like its source material. Henry Selick's Nightmare Before Christmas is perhaps the cultiest of cult classics I know of, matched only by the likes of The Princess Bride for sheer devotees, though with the added advantage of being both a Halloween and a Christmas movie. It's a perfectly fine film. Even though it has like 3 times as many songs as anyone remembers, the ones that do stick out have been stuck in your head since 1993. Its themes of self-discovery and oddballmanship are well observed, and it's just dark enough to capture a young mind without torturing it. But I'm confident the reason it's remained a cultural touchstone for 30 years and counting is undoubtedly the look, the feel of the animation. Stop-motion animation has never been totally in vogue, not because it lacks appeal, but because it's all the struggles of hand-drawn animation multiplied by the Z-axis. It's largely because of that extra effort that makes it so charming, but there's also something undeniably tactile, and perhaps even a touch unsettling about watching these characters brought to life. The mood is superbly established without a sound, so no question, that's the first thing you have to get right when adapting this material into a game world. Yeah, they pretty much nailed it. Just like last time, the alternate costumes that did make it into the game feel especially ceremonial. Even more so here than Atlantica, given that the group doesn't need a new look to function. This one's a purely aesthetic change, and yet it feels so right. The sheer tune force of their usual palette would have stuck out in a way that it hasn't done in any of the other worlds, and what's more, there's a surprising amount of thought put into each of these designs. All 3 are turned into combinations of 2 literary classic horror monsters. Goofy is probably the cleverest, translating his top-heavy hat into a Frankenstein-esque screw while taking most of his doggy features in a werewolf direction. Plus, the jack-o'-lantern on on his nose is of course a reference to Zero from Nightmare, arguably the goodest boy of them all. Donald is most prominently the Mummy, but the empty segments are definitely a reference to the Invisible Man. And finally Sora, who is primarily vampiric or Dracula coded, with what I interpret as elements of the Headless Horseman, a rare classic horror story to have received a Disney adaptation which as yet has not gotten any representation in the Kingdom Hearts games unless you count this. There's an interview with Tetsuya Nomura in the Ultimania where he discusses many aspects of the character designs, and it tells an interesting, if incomplete, story. Apparently, the original plan was for Goofman and the Ducky to rock their classic designs, but it was actually Disney's idea for Nomura to belt and zipper the heck out of them. We also learned that their undersea designs were somewhat rushed, and he wasn't totally satisfied with where they ended up. Apparently, Goofy rocking his classic hat may even have been an oversight they didn't catch until it was too late. As for the Halloween designs, the most interesting detail here is that he originally presented a hilarious Donald design that got shot down. Perhaps it was more Invisible Man and may have left little more than his hat and his face, but alas, it seems we'll never know. This little alleyway we found ourselves in boasts a unique song which only plays at this point in the game. I won't play it yet, because I want to compare it to the song that replaces it in a second. In the meantime, these lights around here all serve a sort of function. Each of them stands over something you can attack, and doing so causes the light to illuminate. Only one of these three over here can be lit at a time, even if you hit them all at once. This one by the save point seems to do even less, but can still be attacked just the same. No one knows if this serves any kind of gameplay or secret purpose. Some theorize that there may be some sort of password system involved by hitting the 3 by the gate in a certain order and then locking in the code with the save point one, but as far as we know, this is purely a goofy little extra. That alone does make it important for my purposes, which I'll get to later. For now, I'll just point out that these three statuettes are all near matches for things in the film. This one's a little Zero, this one's a bit Oogie Boogie, and this cat in the Jack-in-a-Box is that. And we can move on to the square. Heartless, more like harmless. Got him. Okay, so I didn't call attention to the final mix palette swap of the Search Ghosts before, but now, it must be said, this is a massive downgrade when it comes to this world. The colors have been majorly muted, of course, but they still look so purple.
And now, allow me to introduce the Master of Terror, the King of Nightmares, Jack Skellington! Bravo, Jack! Bravo! Those ghosts will be a big hit at this year's Halloween!
Thank you. But their movement still needs work. It's not scary enough. I want to strike bone-chilling terror. I'm going to consult the doctor.
This square is one of those incredibly faithful recreations. You got the guillotine, the fountain, the countdown to Halloween, Jack's house, right down to the cats over top the gate. Even though it's a direct reference to a shot from the movie, a lot of people like to try and read into this countdown here, and I'll bite, it's fun. We know thanks to Kingdom Hearts 2 that the Destiny Islands are subject to the jurisdiction of the Holiday Realms, and we also know school is a thing these kids would be expected to attend, so it's a pretty safe bet the beginning of the game took place during their summer vacation. According to this countdown, it is currently September 25th. Typically a school year starts in early September or the end of August, which means Sora's journey so far has probably taken a lot more real-world time than it seems, and each world visit has been at minimum 2 full days, probably closer to 3 or 4. So yeah, my playtime's not looking so extreme anymore, is it? There are naturally a couple of secrets around here too. There's a Thundara G hidden underneath the stairs to Jack's house, and his door is adorned both with the peeping peephole and this spider doorbell which we can even ring. Do it 3 times and the house will give us an elixir. No doubt a reference to trick-or-treating. Decided to ring the bell 30 times just to be sure, but the elixir's all we get. On the opposite end of the square are 2 jumps which seem thoroughly unintentional. The first one, maybe. Hop from the top of the stairs to this triangular ledge, and this building with teeth's got a power-up. But this second one, absolutely not. No way, no how. But hey, since Jack showed up, the proper version of This Is Halloween became the area's background track, which replaced the somewhat subdued version that played on our arrival. Have a listen while I try to make that jump. only took me about 8,192 tries, and I'm not gonna open this just yet because no way am I gonna expect anyone following along to pull that off. What do you guys think this sign says? Giemmel? We can talk to the mayor before heading anywhere else, and get a few hints as to the pacified Heartless in town. Apparently Jack found a whole book about them, which is surprisingly in character actually, but what is this book? The best source we know of for that subject are the scattered pages of the Ansem Report, which are jealously held by Maleficent's crew of ne'er-do-wells. But apparently, whatever Jack's reading is serving this town better than any other world. Since these search ghosts are being so accommodating, we can take this time to notice that in their Halloween Town forms, their ghostly tales are slightly ghostlier than usual, and you can see through them if you look close enough.
I don't understand. Maybe the guidance system was damaged in the explosion.
Nonsense. My devices are always perfect.
Oh, I've got it! Why, of course. The Heartless need a heart.
So this must be the book on the Heartless. It doesn't really look it, in fact, it seems it's got more to do with Christmas. You can even see some of the plans for the reindeer Jack uses in the movie. That being said, the texture on this left page was completely redone in the final mix versions of the game, which makes me deathly curious to know what on this page they didn't want in the game. Was it this Kirby looking dude up here?
Certainly. A heart's not all that complicated.
Oh my god, Finklestein's chair is the loudest thing in this entire game.
Let's get to work.
Halloween Town is probably the best Disney World in terms of adapting its movie's plot. The recognizable elements of the cinematic world mesh with the established elements of the game in a way that's immediately intriguing, and which sparks conversation, one that will sit in the center of not just this world, but in a way, the entire franchise. Namely the question, what is a heart? Like yeah, anatomically, Sora's most likely got a mass of chambers and valves pumping blood to his gigantic feet and back, but it's never spoken of literally, and we kind of have to speculate based on what little information the game has given us. What is this thing? Is it the soul? If you took it from one body and plugged it into something artificial, like Sally or Pinocchio, what would happen? Is the body a key part of the heart? Why do the Heartless take them? You don't necessarily need to understand how light and darkness work to understand them in the context of this universe, but nonetheless, the questions are being raised now.
Maybe we're missing some ingredients. Let's try adding memory. Sally? Sally! Good for nothing girl. Don't know why I bothered creating her.
We can't read any of the titles on this bookshelf over here, but we can find our last torn page. That's a big deal. We'll have to check out that old book pretty soon, but we're only just getting started here in town.
Jack! We have a major crisis! The Heartless are completely out of control! We can't stop them!
Maybe our experiment triggered something. Everything will be fine, Mayor. You have nothing to worry about.
You know, something odd is that Jack mentioned an explosion earlier, and the entire top of Finklestein's lab seems to have been destroyed. The particulars of that event are never touched on, but everyone seems pretty chill about it.
What about that one?
Never mind, I'm wrong and stupid and my brain and eyes fell out. For some reason, I just never registered that that was this. Jiminy Christmas, I don't know who decided I could do this. So the Heartless are back to their old selves, which of course does include some revamped shadows, though their appearance, much like ours, has also changed. They have this distinctly woven texture to them that I'm really fond of. Now we're gonna do something a bit unorthodox. Climb up to where that power-up was while the enemies are still around and summon Dumbo. No, not because Tim Burton directed the remake, but because he has the potential to enable sequence breaks. He can only fly so high off the ground, but if you fly him off a ledge like this, you can essentially glide with him, and by dismissing him in midair, reach ledges that would otherwise necessitate a speedrunner's precision. Or, I suppose, another ability we don't yet have. Then we can dispatch the Heartless and open up them treasure chests. Atta boy, Dumbo. He's probably my favorite of the summons to attack with, but that's mainly because his summon animation is mercifully short. And honestly, the way Sora shrinks down to ride him in a way that's evocative of Timothy's role in the movie is relentlessly adorable. Not to mention the easy parallels I can draw to another Disney theme park ride. Also, puppies! There's one in the back corner near the fireplace, one sleeping under the spare chairs in the dining room, and one on the edge of the carpet in the TV room. Before we venture out of town, let's swap Jack into the party. Bone Daddy here is one of the best party members in the game. His skill set is almost all offensive magic, including the use of gravity. His base MP is high enough for him to be pretty effective with it, while packing similar HP to Goofy, and a higher strength stat than anyone but Aladdin. But it's his animations that really do it for me. He's so tall, and his pivotous, lanky style of movement is as fun to watch in the game as it was in his home film. On top of that, for some reason, his attack sound effect is the cartoon. In the graveyard, we'll be attacked by White Knights, creatures almost as lanky and stretchy as Jack. Their designs seem loosely based on this one-eyed mummy guy from the movie, and despite only using melee attacks, their long arms and fingers give them deceptive reach, but they're not too threatening on their own.
We're going to have the best Halloween ever. All we need now is your memory.
Memory? You mean this? Jack, I have a bad feeling about this. Why don't you try something else? There's still time.
Nothing could beat what I've got planned.
Okay, with Sally, I get it. Frankenstein's monster but cute, able to cleverly manipulate her body when her stitching comes unraveled, she's a cool character, but I really gotta say, her and Jack's relationship is perhaps one of the toughest to swallow romances in the entire Disney canon, and it's in some competitive company. All Jack does for 90% of the movie is ignore literally everything she says despite her power to straight up divine the future until the actual last scene, which is a one-verse love song where the lyrics, I can't make this up, are verbatim, "We're simply meant to be." Voila, romance achieved.
Once we give the Heartless a heart, they'll dance just as I envision it. Trust me, you're going to love it.
Sally has 2 pieces of missable dialogue here, each depending on your party formation, so without resetting from a save, you could only see 1 per playthrough.
Meryl! Did you hear that?
Yeah, I sure did. A heart. What should we do?
Gosh, you really are stupid. Isn't it obvious? Tell Oogie Boogie.
Lock, Shock, and Barrel have a peculiarity involved with the game's journal. Despite how animated the Heartless are in the model viewer, almost all the humanoid characters are only animated just enough so you know they're alive. The only 4 exceptions are these 3 mischievous trick-or-treaters, and then you wanna try and guess the 4th? You won't. It's Selfie. For some reason, out of everyone, she gets these idle animations in here.
That bonehead Jack is really making a heart.
Whoa! You're joking. You're joking. I can't believe my ears. Indeed, we have one last legendarily villainous reprise from a performer who's tragically no longer with us. Ken Page. And for as many things as I can criticize about Michael McDowell's Nightmare Before Christmas, one thing I can easily say is beyond reproach is the performance and overall screen presence of the Oogie Boogie Man. And while the animation sells it, Ken Page makes it.
I'm really scared.
Like all the greats, having his immortality cemented here in Kingdom Hearts brings me tremendous joy.
I'll be jiggered. That works for me. Ooh, when I get my hands on that, well, I've got no hands, but I'm still gonna nab that heart and control the Heartless.
This is far from the last we'll ever hear the Boogie song.
Was a Mr. Oogie Boogie, and you ain't going nowhere.
So the format that this world's taking is sort of a fetch quest. We're gonna get deeper into the graveyard area with each pass, and as we hop through this coffin to Curly Hill, let's discuss this level's what I've come to call gameplay pillar. Out of all of them, Halloween Town was probably the toughest to pin down, and I think what this world does better than any other is the world itself. Much like the movie, there's an immense emphasis on how everything feels, the texture, the mechanics, and it was apparent the moment we touched down with those lamps in the alley. There are more objects to examine and interact with. There are more characters from the source material represented. You've got this ghostly Tombstone Simon game that destroys this giant jack-o'-lantern. The whole environment is just a touch more tactile and dynamic than any other. Well, almost any other. There's certainly an argument to be made for Wonderland, but even Wonderland didn't reskin all the main characters and enemies. Check out the way this hanging skeleton dangles, or rather decides to stop dangling when you get close enough. The way these gargoyle plinths get replaced by Heartless, a favorite trope of mine. And of course, there's even a touch of adaptive difficulty. The more you mess up this grave minigame, the more likely the ghosts start to pop out of tombstones near each other. You may even see all three come out of the same stone. Oh, and this big stone in the back has this sort of guitar imagery, so maybe it's this guy's grave. We could go straight back to the lab with our Jack-in-the-Box, or we could explore a little further. The Curly Hill is one of the most iconic images from the movie, very cool to see it faithfully recreated here. There's plenty in this space, including the uncommon possibility of black fungi, but all I'll hit on for now is this little lantern elevator over to the side, which sends us straight back to the first graveyard. And here are some much more welcome mushrooms to our cause. At long last, these ones spin with the request for arrow. Normally when we get a new spell, the mushrooms asking for it would be in the very next world, if not the same world in Kira's case. But we got arrow from opposite armor. Therefore, I can only assume you're not meant to fight him until you revisit Traverse Town to check on Geppetto and Pinocchio. Regardless, that is all 7 arts. Fret not item descriptions, I do know their value.
This time it's sure to work.
I honestly don't know if no one talks about the pun that is this trio's names because no one gets it or because everyone gets it. It could go either way, so just to be safe, the idiom lock, shock, stock, and barrel comes from the major components of a firearm. So it means all together, like the whole kit and caboodle. As we give chase, we'll encounter gargoyles, the spooky cousins of the air soldiers, and frankly, one of the top contenders for the most egregious final mix recolor. Look how they massacred my boy. And it's worth noting now that we have Thundara, we really don't need to think about combat anymore. Yeah, Fyra and Blizzara use less MP to cast and can absolutely be better if you're going a long stretch without a save point, but man, the area of effect, the power, there's no denying the appeal of going absolutely head empty on the mooks. Just unga bunga have some thunda. Using that lantern elevator gave us a bit of a shortcut, and though it's probably the most incremental one in the game, I still appreciate this sort of thing. As I said, there are a lot of cool tidbits around Curly Hill. These large red jack-o'-lanterns are the first time Sora's ability to throw things has had much of a combat application. They'll explode after a moment when struck, or on impact when thrown. It's a shame they don't hit that hard, but it's still unique. This lantern, like many fires we can light in this game, can be extinguished with Blizzard, though uniquely, it can also be put out with thunder and gravity. Far more bizarre than that, though, is its behavior in the original Japanese version. For some reason, it could be lit with Blizzard, and its fire was even blue if you did. I honestly find that less weird than the fact it was changed. Why remove that? It's so cool. Inspect this grave to elongate the hill and venture on, and in this area, my goodness, 3 types of mushrooms in one world? Unheard of. This area is much more open than Monstro's Throat, and though I have gotten no better at keepy uppy, the funnel-esque shape of these riverbanks gives us a pretty major advantage. And we can actually engage with this minigame. Now what we're gonna do is equip Jungle King and unequip any abilities that affect the way we attack, like aerial sweep. Gently, painstakingly, nudge a truffle over to this corner by the stairs in the drainage, and then knock it up this hill. There's nowhere for it to land except the bottom of the slope, so by getting into a rhythm of jumping, moving slightly to the right, and attacking, we get the most consistent means of racking up points. As you can see, each hit gives us successively more tech points, but there are also milestone rewards we get for reaching certain amounts, 10, 50, and 100. The Shiitake and Matsutake rewards can only be obtained this way, but unlike the White Mushrooms arts, their value actually is unknown, save for the sell prices. Not a bad chunk of change, but they're essentially just bragging rights. The real prize here is the XP. For taking one all the way down, you get a total of 5,050 tech points, double what we're gonna get for this world's boss fight. There's no question, this is the fastest way to level up at this stage of the game. But in all honesty, I still don't love this location for playing with these truffles. Being Halloween Town, the loop around to get them to spawn requires you to sift through a lot of junk just to use the interactables, and pushing them over to this corner is honestly really annoying, so I'd hold off until a bit later if you want to farm them. There are plenty of goodies we can nab around here with a bit of platforming, and this drainage at the bottom of the river will spit us out of the Guillotine Square fountain, which is actually pretty cool, but nothing stopping us from moving onward to Oogie's Manor, and good lord, this place got a heck of a glow up from the spindly tree in the movie, my goodness! I'll be honest, I don't love Halloween Town's level design. It's kind of back and forth, and the fact you have to interact with something to move forwards means you're locked into combat a lot more often than most other worlds. But man, if Oogie's Manor isn't one of the coolest single rooms in the whole series. Let's start from the bottom. In any other world, falling down here would be a loading zone, but not here. There's not much on the ground layer, a few heartless, and the quintessential backtracking trinity on this arch right here. It's just a mithril shard, so don't fret if you brought Jack with you. We'll be back later anyway. But this mark is among the most interesting changes made in the final mix versions of this game. In the original release, it was within the manor itself, right here next to the front door. Using it shattered this weird, mouthy protrusion on the exterior of the house and revealed the chest. This was altered because the area is going to become inaccessible before we're done here today, and in the original game, that caused this Trinity mark to be permanently missable, so they moved it to avoid soft blocking the player out of 100%. But what's really bizarre is that the Trinity on the arch still destroys that little section of the house, though you'd only know why if you remember this from the original. This river will take you right back to the bridge, but if even that's too far for you, the sentient bathtub is also wandering around down here, and it will gladly waddle you up to Oogie's front door. I haven't mentioned the various footstep sound effects since Wonderland, but this place has some of the best. This creaky bridge, the hollow metal sound of these lantern elevators. Such good stuff. Golly, this is just so iconic. The silhouettes of the gargoyles against that incredible moon, I really can't gush about it enough. There are some tricky treasures to nab, and of course, the vertical nature of this space makes combat more tense the higher you go in a way that's totally organic. Missing your footing up here wouldn't actually be that consequential, but the feel is absolutely there. If you do happen to fall, but not all the way down, you can head over to this little area with the green door. There's this obscure interaction you can make use of in this cave. Evidently, you get sucked up through this pipe here and can resume the climb from there. I love how everything has a face. It's such a PG-friendly way of making something feel a little creepy. Like, I was never scared walking through here as a kid, but I do remember feeling pretty brave for facing this down, especially when I got to the top with these wiggly rib bones. But let's head into the evil playroom. Oh, yeah, alright, okay, we're boss fighting, here we go, let me get the mural up, shwing and all that, okay, lock, shock, and barrel. Could seriously go down faster than that cutscene. I don't know what I expected from a trio of perpetual preschoolers, but given that this fight is based on their big musical number, Kidnap the Sandy Claus, I think it would have been cool to see them incorporate any of their nasty tools of the trade, but instead, each one has one attack. Lock throws rocks, shock spins around, and barrel spins around, but differently. They're plainly designed to be pathetic, and I guess that's good. If they weren't, this would be an unforgivably long boss run. Like most bosses that are almost too easy to bother with, there are still a number of neat details involved here, so let's blow through the tactics I got. Ready? Lock down lock, and then the other two genuinely can't attack fast enough not to get stun-locked by your party members. That's it, that's the fight. Each of the three has the possibility of dropping orbs, when struck, when hitting 0 HP, and in Shock and Barrel's case, when getting dizzy. I like how each one drops a different kind. Lock drops HP, Shock drops magic, and you steal Barrel's lunch money because he's the biggest dweeb of the batch. When you beat them, they all go over to this corner and stand in timeout like this was a game of dodgeball, which is a cute touch. Gotta imagine no one on our side feels quite right going full It's Always Sunny on these three, even if they did attack first. Oh man, does this arena have it all. The chute that leads down to Oogie's lair, the evil ducky, this claw catapult, the target festooned with axes, the busted couch, all the masks on the walls, the fishbone carvings, the bear trap, and some creative license like this skeletal light fixture, and this basketball hoop filled with skulls. Coolest of all is this curtain, which we can't see past, but if we were to remove it, we'd see the trio's cache of weapons. If these three are giving you trouble on a level 1 run, this is really Dumbo's time to shine. Since you're invincible on his back, just hop aboard and splash the heck out of Locke. If the other two get caught in your line of fire, fine, but Locke is your target. If Dumbo doesn't get him all the way down, pivot to Genie, who should be able to finish him off no problem. Once he can no longer throw anything around the battlefield, this couch up here becomes completely safe. Shock and Barrel might hop up to you, but it's only to do a cute taunt animation. So these two have massive cooldowns between their attacks, and Shock even throws resources at you. You do the math on how the rest of this fight goes.
Here! I'll behave, I promise.
After they're down, apart from their protestations of innocence, all their dialogue hints towards this lever and the green door where can be found their big bossy bag of bugs. And most people after hitting the lever will jump straight down and find themselves face to face with exactly where they need to go, but if you do that, you'll miss out on the fact that hitting that lever also caused these cages with chests in them to be lowered into reach. Hey, this upper one looks like a giant spider, that's neat. Oh, and one more thing, I slowed down the footage on these gears, and I can't quite describe how happy it makes me that the teeth are synced up despite the fact they're rotating at different speeds. That feels like it couldn't have been the easiest thing to do. The torture chamber? Oh boy!
You want it? Well then come on over and get it! Ah! Now, let's see if I can get their attention. Oh, hi, This is it. Nobody disrespects me.
Keeping with Halloween Town's haptic nature, this is a boss fight against the arena itself more than it is against the boogeyman. At the beginning of the fight, there's nothing you can do to prevent yourself from getting dropped into this rowdy roulette wheel, where you are practically at his mercy. You can fling spells at him, but it won't gain you much, as he's about twice as resistant to every type of magic as most other bosses. It's also definitely worth noting that these magic modifications are applied after damage caps, meaning that the most you can do to him is like 8 damage, so keep your MP to yourself. You won't need it for anything but cure. Now for his attacks. Oogie's a gamblin' boogeyman, although he don't play fair. Most attacks are tied to his dice.
Oh, baby.
As a kid, I always heard this line as bomb baby, so that's what I'm calling it. When the dice are glowing orange, they're a fairly basic projectile. The safest place to be from the dice themselves is on the opposite side of the roulette tower. If they're not glowing, then the number they land on, which will almost always be a triple, ooh baby, will determine the attack that comes next. Ones will result in Buzzsaw, which will ricochet around the arena, making a slight nuisance of itself, but really nothing too tricky. 2, he'll summon a pair of gargoyles. 3, a pair of white knights. 4, will lower these scythes from the ceiling, which can either spin along the ground or bounce. 5 will summon a pair of search ghosts, and 6 will activate his healing machine, which will restore, I think, about 60 HP to him. After the Heartless are defeated or the other devices have finished doing their stuff, the buttons on the roulette will glow. You need to step on whichever one Oogie is closest to, which will raise barriers around that section and lift it up so you can finally attack your tormentor. Now this bag of bugs is, remarkably, the first opponent we've fought to have a genuine weakness. Physical attacks have a plus 50% damage multiplier on them, so if you're hitting the damage cap, you'll actually deal 25 damage per hit, which is pretty generous. He's got a little slap attack that is pathetically easy to parry and riposte, and he'll basically let you get 10 hits in before he forces you back to the grind. There are a few more particulars, like if you hit the wrong button, it's surprisingly elaborate. The wheel will spin you into position in front of these Desperados, they'll fire, and then the barriers will go back down and the roulette will spin back to its default position. Even though you can't block their shots, they're really easy to dodge by standing in a corner. But I doubt anyone who realizes they're meant to trap Oogie in these fences will mess up the positioning and see this attack. When he gets to around 2/3 of his HP, he'll gain the ability to forgo the dice toss and just activate the scythes at higher speeds. But the long and the short of it is, none of his attacks are hard to dodge at all. They're super telegraphed and slow moving, so even when he doubles up, he's still on about the same level as Darkseid. So the question isn't really how to win, the difference you can make is how fast you can take him down. In which case, my genuine recommendation would be, just let Jack do it. His crazy high strength makes him more likely to be hitting those damage caps unless you're way overleveled or have been juicing those power-ups. So given that Oogie will essentially give you 10 free hits, do your best to give them to Jack, and he can obliterate Oogie's health bar in just a few cycles. Other oddities to note, you can deflect the dice back at Oogie, and the explosive ones give a lot of tech points. Bear in mind, I have none of the tech bonus abilities equipped, it's just a bunch. If you're curious, this is because the amount of tech points you get for deflecting any given attack is calculated based on the XP yield of that enemy. And this guy gives a lot of XP. He has the ability to jump in order to re-roll the dice, but I have no idea what causes him to do it. I certainly couldn't get it to happen consistently. A really neat detail is that he's actually capable of deflecting his own dice with the scythes, though you still get the tech points. Even cooler than that though, if you manage to hit all 3 dice back at him before they settle on a number, you'll just skip that cycle and the buttons will glow immediately. Even though this fight is a foregone conclusion, we can't possibly move on without gushing about the details. This arena is a massive love letter to the best part of the film.
And now, with your permission, I'm going to do my stuff.
The wheel itself, including its border pattern of suits and skulls. This is what they use for the buzzsaw, the slot machines, which are also a fantastic visual pun, since some people actually call these one-armed bandits. These pinwheel scythes are from the scene later in the movie. They've even got that 8-ball abdomen design. The only thing I couldn't quite place was the healing machine. It also looks like you should be able to somehow interact with or interrupt the process, but nothing I tried worked. The song playing here is called Destiny's Force, and if the deep end is Kingdom Hearts' way of telling you to brace yourself, Destiny's Force is its way of telling you to just don't worry about it. So far it's played for the second Darkside fight, Opposite Armor, Genie Jafar, the second Parasite Cage fight, and now Oogie's Manor. This is another non-boss fight, not so much a big opponent as it is a large-scale platforming challenge with some obstacles. He's certainly got the intimidation factor, but when you get right down to it, this is a fight against 7 completely immobile opponents. The Dark Blobs each have 90 health and very little means of defending themselves. Every once in a while, one might shoot out a little Fyra. The Manor itself has a few defense mechanisms though. Most prominently, this big lantern spewing Fyras a lot more often than every once in a while, in addition to being a hitbox when it's swinging around. It may not immediately occur to you to try, but this lantern is considered its own enemy. It can only be damaged with ice, physical, and summon attacks, but if you manage it, you can completely remove it from the equation. I once again recommend Dumbo if this is the route you decide to take. Also, be aware of a few things. Not having the lantern in his hand will free it up to use this sweep attack that can only affect this area right here. Maybe destroy this dark blob before the lantern so you don't have to worry about it. After destroying the big lantern, he'll switch on this spider lantern as a backup, which for whatever reason has less health and goes down even easier with Dumbo because it doesn't move. With both lanterns out of the picture, there's only one attack left to worry about. His mouth will emit these dark particles that can actually be quite troublesome since they inflict the rare poison status and can't be blocked like the Fyras can. They're pretty short range though, so as long as you keep moving away from them, they're not much of a threat. The last thing he can do directly, which isn't really an attack, is wiggle these boards on the upper level to try and shake you off. Results may vary. Now, despite this being a non-boss fight, it's still kind of my jam, since there is a ton to consider when trying to pick out the best order to take out the 7 blobs, the best route to climb up with, whether or not to destroy the lanterns, do we want to leave and come back later with a really helpful mobility upgrade we're missing. So, here's everything I could figure out. 1. Oogie will only start using his Dark Breath attack once one of 2 conditions is fulfilled. Either you've destroyed 3 blobs or both lanterns. Honestly, the fire is a lot more manageable than the Dark Breath, so probably leave the lanterns up, especially since that leaves Dumbo free for later. 2. The blobs themselves will cast Fyra more frequently the fewer are left. They telegraph the attack with this sort of sparkle animation, but the ones which face sideways are much tougher to avoid than the ones facing upwards, which means we probably want to take out the ones by his upraised arms and the center of his back early. 3. His Dark Breath and Fyra attacks are going to be much more pressing issues the closer you are to their sources. When dealing with the orbs that don't have line of sight on the face or lanterns, they're not even a factor. 4. The blobs will infinitely summon a pair of gargoyles to defend them once you get close enough if there are 4 or fewer left. These are a major issue at lower levels since our only real option will be to focus on the blob and hope our Keyblade lays down some collateral damage. And 5, after destroying the blobs, the ground will gain 16 gargoyle spawns. Now, the map can only have 2 gargoyles at a time, so if any are left up in the branches, they won't spawn down here. But if you do fall down while there are no others spawned in, these will spawn one after another until you get back into the upper layers or defeat them all. This can be a good thing or a bad thing, since you can fight them anywhere and they drop tons of magic, but 16 is a bit of a grind, so be extra careful of your footing if you're not down for that. Mash all those up in a ball, and this is what I've come up with. We basically get 3 free blobs before the gargoyles make life difficult. The first one I want is absolutely this really annoying one in the armpit. It's upside down in a position that makes combos really inconsistent, and it's in range of the Dark Breath. So we're gonna start by climbing up the back and then circling forward to deal with this first. Be sure to take cover to the right if it starts sparking, and then we'll go after our next target, the other upside down one on the back. Once again, duck off to the right if the fire comes out. I've had it circle around and hit me when I hid to the left. Now things get tricky. The gargoyles are tougher to manage the more directions they have to come at you from, so I'm going to take out this one closest to the big lantern next. By positioning the blob between me and the lantern, the fire can't touch me. One last time this world, let's call in Dumbo. The invincibility is our best friend right here at the center of everything. You're going to want to make sure that you have both Goofy and Jack equipped with cheer to give yourself as much elephant time as possible. But even with that, at level 1, it's only enough for one blob. We'll use the last of the iframes to mosey out of harm's way and head up to the top of the manor. Now this is the most wide open, which gives the gargoyles the advantage, but it also gives Genie the most space to work with. So we're gonna call on him and let loose on all 3 targets as best we can. Once again, he should have just enough juice for one blob, and that leaves only 2. I left these 2 down on the lower back. By positioning ourselves so we're always facing the blob and the gargoyles, we can bat them away while dealing damage pretty consistently. Since there are only ever 2 at a time, even if we do take a hit, we should have space to heal. And if there's one thing that makes this feasible, it's the sheer amount of MP we'll be recovering with how many hits these blobbies take. This last one is the easiest, since there's just enough room to Jimmy Sora into the corner and go caveman mode on the attack button, and that will bring this overgrown tree crashing down. As an alternate, though admittedly dirty strategy, you could run around and prime all the blobs to go down in only one more hit, then circle back to take them out with little to no opposition. As cheap as it is, there's no denying its effectiveness. Just a small touch, there are multiple versions of that cutscene depending on how many lanterns you did or didn't destroy. For beating him and sealing that keyhole, we get another power of the stars, Gravira. With a base damage of 55% of the target's health up from 40, with just 9 MP, we can now one-shot any enemy that doesn't specifically resist gravity, even those with damage caps who would have something to say about that. Its area of effect was also improved, which does a bit to compensate for its low speed. We picked up Ansem Report 7 amid all that scuffle, and this one's weird. The pontification's on Heartless pause, so he can talk about what we can only assume to be gummy blocks. The lore of the customizable ships was not on my bingo card here, but I'll play. So these things rain from outer space rather than being anything man-made. We can guess from this mention of the door that they may signify when the barrier separating one world from the next becomes weakened or destroyed. But I suppose if this answers any question, it's why so many of the chests in every world contain gummy blocks. Oh hey, I guess they did end up explaining it. As a gift from Jack, we also get the pumpkin head keychain. Now this one sticks out to me. It's a really good keyblade, the highest strength yet, a better crit rate than most, the only long one we've gotten since Jungle King, plus it's got a pretty elegant design and a nice and crunchy sound effect. I'd be all over this with a strength build, but what's always confused me is the people out there who actually own Keyblades. I'm not judging at all, I think they're a really cool collectible, and if I had the space and money, I'd want at least one too. But for some reason, anytime I see a collection of more than 3, it's always a bunch that are unaffiliated with the Disney worlds, and then Pumpkinhead is there too. Is it just because it's a Nightmare Before Christmas thing? Am I out of touch? Well, at least we finally have a weapon to match this world's aesthetics, and it's not too little too late either. There's a fair bit we can still do here. If we swap Jack out of the party, he'll be hanging out here with Sally, and wonder of wonders, he can give us access to the party member through dialogue. That's dang cool. Why haven't the others done that? If we head out to the Curly Hill, after sealing the keyhole, this Christmas tree door will be unlocked. It does not take us to Christmas Town, rather a secret graveyard, home to a number of valuable treasures and elaborate graves. I like this one that looks like a big old doggy. And speaking of doggies, all 3 of these are in the living room. ironically. One in the green chair, one who clearly wishes he'd gotten there first, and one perched up by the pictures in the corner. Then, if we return to the manor, well, I think we're gonna need a new name for this map. There is simply nothing left. All you're likely to find amid the rubble here are a few scattered Heartless. If you missed any of the chests in the manor while making the ascent, no worries. They'll all be hanging around here. Plus, one extra in this sunken area directly beneath the guillotine. Another trio of puppers, one sleeping peacefully underneath the troublemakers here, another Carnation Dalmatian under this table, and a third has joined the Society of the Grandfather Clock. One more interesting note about that missable trinity from earlier, though the mark itself could be forever lost, the chest you got from it still dutifully wound up in this little pit in the original versions. While that may be all you're likely to find, there's one more thing you're unlikely to find. The rare Heartless Chimera, which may appear only after clearing a few waves of White Knights in the center of the area. This thing is easily one of my favorite Heartless designs. It's so unique and yet fits in really well just the same. This is probably because it wasn't designed for Final Mix, but was originally intended to be a part of the main game. It was fully modeled and even animated, but got cut for one reason or another. I love that it basically got a second lease on life as a rare Heartless, and it's a pretty cool one. The Chimera acts sort of like a regular boss. He's tough and quick and can summon other Heartless to the fight, though with 200 HP and no real gimmick, he stands quite apart from the other rare Heartless we've faced. That is, until you deplete that HP and his real HP bar reveals itself. 900 HP and a damage cap of 2, even from gravity? And he'll go back into that 200 HP armor after a few seconds, or immediately if all 3 of the heads now bouncing around outside land a hit. The key here is that hitting the heads into the armor deals massive damage. It's kinda weird the way it's calculated. The first head we hit, let's say the green, will deal 32 damage. The second, we'll say yellow, will do 48, and the third, the red, will do 64. Those damage numbers are now locked in for those colors until they get back to the armor. So, to deal the most damage, we want all 3 heads to stay outside as long as possible. But really, any progress is good progress. Once he's reconstituted, he'll always summon 4 gargoyles. Between them and the Chimera's rapid and really strong attacks, this is a war of resources. You're not likely to get through it without needing to restore your MP at some point, especially because this is the first fight that makes me highly recommend Arrow. He's that tough to avoid. Whittle away all the health though, and you might nab your very first Blazing Stone. You could pick up a couple extras as you go too, if you do an especially good job deflecting heads while he's staggered. Grinding this guy is none too easy, but be aware at least that you can tell if you can get him to spawn by whether this gate has shadows or White Knights around it. In any case, there's a bit of a farewell party at the save point to leave town. They all have their piece to say, nothing too remarkable, but don't miss the fact that Zero is also here. He only appears if you get close enough, so you very well could have. For all we've done today, there's very little waiting for us back in Traverse Town. Even with access to Blazing Stones and easier access to Lucid Gems, few new doors have opened to us in the way of synthesis. Only the Moogle badge is something we haven't already touched on. Though it's certainly a nice item, it's not the most exciting, and we're still several items off from unlocking the next tier. However, if we head to Merlin's, it's another story. For collecting at least one of every White Mushroom arts, we can obtain the Dream Shield, the very shield that appeared in the Dive to the Heart back in the opening moments of the game. Its description is even a callback to the choice we had to make back then. Now, unfortunately, we can't marvel at Sora's hilarious shield-wielding techniques, as this shield is for Goofy. But this opens up the possibility that the other 2 weapons may be out there somewhere. It's no ultimate shield or anything, but it's the first we've found which raises his magic, something that may come in especially handy in the future. One little niggle though, the description clearly says it raises max MP by 2, which was the case in the original game, but it was changed to +1 in Final Mix, and they didn't fix this text. Come on, guys. What a note to end Halloween Town on. That's fine. Now, as I'm sure I've made abundantly clear, Nightmare Before Christmas is far from my favorite movie. I don't have any nostalgia for it, and I never had that Hot Topic phase. Much like Wonderland, its presence in this game was the biggest impact it had on my young mind, and for some reason that impact was feather light. I went into this world to write this script feeling practically blind. I remembered the square, I remembered the manor and the boss fights therein, but everything in between was complete television static. And what's really weird is that I have no idea why. I enjoyed that world hugely. The sort of fetch quest format works fine, the shortcuts you can use to navigate the world faster are satisfying. If I had to guess why it fell straight through my long-term memory like Jack in the Snow, I would hazard that it's because it's way too easy. This may well have been the only world in this game I never got stuck in as a kid. Even without talking to your hint masters, the path forward is always pretty self-evident, and none of the bosses are going to stand in your way for long. That's absolutely not a criticism. We're gearing up to head into this game's final act, and a cooldown period just before that is a proven bit of game design. So proven, in fact, that Halloween Town was just the first half of it. Next time, we're going to take the Kingdom Hearts equivalent of a vacation. And if you want to come experience the maximum chill and cozy vibes right now, yes, this exact minute, you can come see the next episode of Game Breakdown on my Patreon using the link in the description. This is the first episode I've written since making YouTube my full-time job, so all the support you guys send my way means everything to me. And in addition to those early videos, all my patrons get thanked like crazy, like you, Amiri the Grey, who is so gosh dang cute, kittens come up to her on the street and pet her. Raven, who is pleased to announce that the end times have been delayed. Do with that what you will. Rockington can outfox anything. Obviously including foxes, come on. Alec, Seeker of Shine Sprites, who everyone thinks is in a Groundhog Day loop, but they're actually just that on it. Grim Degree can speak Braille. Meryl Hainsworth, who doesn't know why eldritch horrors from the great beyond keep trying to ambush her, but at least it's good exercise. Strangebird, who once escaped one of those infinite staircases by sliding down them in a set of footy pajamas. And Steve, whose driver's license photo looked so good they put it in the Louvre. Additional obsessive shoutouts to Chris Bradow, Sato DeSable, 10-Beat, RPG Grenade, Tabriz Sadiq, Kane Lowwind, Rucksack 358-2, Red Panda King, Remus, Busy Town, Zere, Eric Lee, Fundeldor, Pagagallo, Doc Crimson, Scar Million, Undead Crisis, Kauth, Sean Flowers, and every single one of you stellar patrons keeping me afloat. You really are too much. And I'll see you in the next one.